Hello, my name is Lauren and welcome to today's video. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about low notes, particularly for those of you that are having trouble with low notes. Maybe they're not even playing. You're struggling with the low register. Either the notes are not sounding or they're very weak when they do sound. So if you're having this experience with low notes, then this video is for you. So I kind of want to go over briefly how low notes are produced generally. So what I feel that my air angle is lower in the low register. I also feel like my aperture, the opening of my lips, is very narrow but wide. I feel like my jaw for my low notes is down and back a bit more. So yeah, my jaw's down and back. Maybe my lips over the embouchure hole of the flute are making more of an acute angle, whereas in the middle register my lips are more forward, but it's not so, like, my top lip is not this prominent in the other registers, whereas in the low register it is. In general, for a mezzo forte healthy sound, you might want to think about using warm, slow air. And yeah, so things like this. I want to recommend a helpful exercise, very basic, is from Trevor Wise' tone book. It's actually just, it's a very common tone exercise. I feel like it's in a lot of tone books. I think in the Trevor Wise book it's on page 7. Just starting on a B in the staff, getting a good sounding B in the staff, and then gradually working down chromatically one note at a time. So B to B flat to A to A flat. So I want to go ahead and just do a few long tones like this. I'll also link a copy of these long tones which I have on my website. I'll link that in the description if you want to follow along and know what notes I'm playing. But I want to do some close-ups to show you an example of my embouchure, what it looks like and what I'm doing on the low notes. Not that it has to look like mine, but it might be a good visual to have after my explanation and just something to see. So here it is. So hopefully some of what I was talking about was clear to see in those close-ups, and you can see that from the B in the staff to the very low notes on the flute, my top lip is more prominent. I know I made a low notes video in the past where I talked about shark face, which is like the corners going down a little bit and the jaw back, so that my mouth feels like it's almost facing the ground while I'm still looking forward. That sensation. Another sensation I feel is my top teeth are coming over the embouchure hole, but I'm still facing forward. It's not like I'm looking down and stifling the sound. So if you haven't seen my first low notes video I made a few years ago, I'll link it up here and also in the description below if you want to check that out. But right now, I want to get into the common problems that I see in my students if they're having this problem. I just want to go over a lot of the things that I see happening and talk about the solution to these problems. So the first and most common one is definitely covering too much of the embouchure hole. It's like just what I was saying, like going down, looking down. It can kind of stifle and crush the sound. And if you use a mirror, you might find that you're covering too much and the air is totally missing the flute. And another thing that might be happening is your air is just aiming too far across. So you might reevaluate how you're aligning your flute. Use a mirror. In the low register especially, I feel like it's really just like 1/3 of the embouchure hole is being covered. Maybe a little bit more in the middle and high registers because your lips are forward more. They're coming more forward, so you may be covering a little bit more. But in general, in the low register, make sure you're only covering 1/3. The other part of this is to make sure your air is being angled down into the flute. So yeah, if you want to take your arm, put it right here and blow up and down with your lips. Don't move your head, just your lips. Careful not to roll the lips in and do this, but keep your lips out. And notice what you do when you blow down without looking down. Your jaw probably goes back a little bit. This part of your face is probably longer. Your lips are coming down. Yeah, I'm still keeping a narrow aperture when my lips are coming down and aiming the air down. It almost feels like my mouth is facing the ground when I'm playing low notes a little bit. So play around with that. So maybe just reevaluate your setup. Are you covering much more than 1/3? And does it help if you roll out a little bit and allow the bottom lip to only cover 1/3 of the embouchure hole? And does it help if you angle the air a little bit down without looking down? So that's the first thing I see, and I want to suggest, and so hopefully those little adjustments, you know, if you find some improvements, then you know that you're getting on the right track. So the next one is holding the head too high. This is another one I see when people are, maybe they get used to playing like this for whatever reason, and their air is just mostly going out here, not being used efficiently through the flute. So look at yourself in the mirror in both this this scenario and in the last scenario that I mentioned. Look in the mirror, look at your alignment. Also watch videos of professional flute players and see how different flute players are holding their flutes and positioning their head. They're probably not way up here, but more centered, and see what effect that has on your sound as well. Just look in a mirror. You can even just move around while you play to find where the sound really rings. I had a much bigger sound just realigning here, just simply by moving my chin down. It's not like I'm looking down, but I was using the exact same air, but it was so much fuller in one particular spot. So you can look in a mirror and see what you can learn that way, and if you're falling into that category. The other problem I see is that the angles may just be off. So this is kind of like the last one, but a lot of times I feel like students or players can get stuck in one particular position. They can just get really rigid, like they figured out how to play and they're just stuck there. So I want to encourage you, if you're falling into this category, to move around, give yourself permission to make changes, to be flexible, to kind of be playful with it, and just move your mouth in different positions that you're not used to moving it when you're playing the flute. almost like if I was to run my finger like around the screen like this, you could follow it with your lips and kind of feel if you get any really good, a lot of sound with less effort, which is always usually a good sign. So this might look like this. So it's moving the jaw and moving the lips. Careful when you move your jaw down that your lips aren't opening up, like the aperture is still staying in check. It's still staying where it needs to be to create a good sound. May make you just a little less afraid of moving, of breaking out of, if you're just feeling stuck. Another thing that you might notice is that your teeth were too close together. Opening up the teeth a little bit can give you more sound. So just moving around, experimenting with it, allowing yourself to be flexible, to experiment with and feel out different angles, hand positioning. So that could be helpful too. And that could be a part of a warm-up. You could just do that. On your first note of your long tones, try that. And when you find a really nice spot, then continue with the long tones and keep playing with that. So the angles, the jaw, the lips, and see if that helps. Another another issue that might interfere with your low notes is that you may actually have a leak in your flute. So you want to check if your keys aren't closing all the way, if they're not sealing all the way. If you push down the keys on the foot joint and you notice some of them aren't going down all the way, that would be a leak. So you can get that checked, take it to a repair technician to check for leaks, or if you want to bring your flute to a teacher or somebody that's very comfortable with playing low notes, and so they can tell you if your low notes are working fine or if your flute needs to be repaired. Another problem that it might be is if you have an open hole flute and your thumb is coming way forward and you're trying to play low notes, your fingers might be really cramped up like this and not closing the keys all the way. So make sure you have a really relaxed right hand position and that you're covering the keys with kind of the fleshy part of the fingers. And then lastly in this category is if you have small hands, like I have small hands, I think it's very helpful to remember, if you're jutting your thumb forward, constantly remind yourself to keep it underneath the flute, and that'll allow your pinky to move easier. Maybe your pinky is accidentally touching this E flat key when it's playing these notes, in which case you're not gonna get the sound that you're wanting. If your pinky is touching this E flat key while it's over here, you want to make sure your pinky's not touching that key, and that can help you with your low notes too. So 2 more tips I want to suggest are that you allow this to be a gradual process. Don't feel like you have to force or rush this. This is something that can take time. It does take time, and just start with that long tones exercise that I will link below, and start with a few notes. Maybe just do B, B flat, and A the first day, and just get your best sound. Use all these suggestions that I'm sharing. Find your positioning, which creates the most sound, the ease of sound with the least effort. And just do it on the 3 notes, and just take notes, notice, observe any improvements, and then gradually add lower and lower notes. Another thing I like to suggest, so that would be one, and then the very last suggestion I will say is be aware of any unnecessary tension you may be harboring somewhere. This could even be in the shoulders. It could be in the forehead. Where are you holding some tension that might be stifling your low notes a little bit? So feel like really loose, just to kind of be in a loose, get on a loose, flexible kind of place when you start working on this. So one exercise that I want to suggest is something I read in the Gilbert Legacy book. It's just holding a note, like a bee in the staff, and gradually increasing the quantity of air without doing too much with the lips. Just kind of feel out, make more room for the sound as you increase the quantity of air. But the idea is to release tension. So I'm going to do this on a bee. I'm not really doing much. It's not really like it's not a performance sound. It's more of an exercise where you're just allowing yourself to open up, allowing things to open up, feeling space in your mouth, and experimenting. So I'll do it on a B flat. So I'm mostly using my air. I'm mostly using my stomach muscles. And I'm not doing too much with the lips, whereas if it was more of a finessed sound. I might be more narrow in the aperture, but just allow it to be an exercise. If you feel like you're really tightening up or your jaw's really tight or something's really tight, you can use that exercise to kind of rely on your air a little bit and kind of loosen up and not use any excess tension in the lips. So those are my suggestions. If you feel like you're having some trouble getting your low notes out, I hope you find some of these tips helpful. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe below for more tutorial videos like this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.